What to do with Thomas Partey? Mikel Arteta has a tactical decision to make. So far this season, Thomas Partey has started at right back. He's moved into midfield, joining Declan Rice to create a box with Havertz, Odegaard, and of course Declan Rice and Partey. This has been good for Arsenal. It's given them control in central midfield, but I feel like it's restricting Arsenal in an offensive sense. Today we're going to be discussing that. We're going to be talking about the game against Crystal Palace, the 1-0 win, and diving into a little bit of Thomas Partey stats, and also analysing Ben White, who I feel is not getting forward enough with Partey playing as a right back and him playing as a centre back. Welcome to the Premier League review. If you missed out the first episode, we spoke about Manchester United. Now we're diving into Arsenal this week. So Arsenal in the Premier League this season have been very, very good. They've controlled games, picking up the 6 out of the 6 points available to them. But I don't think they're at their creative best at the moment, beating them Nottingham Forest 2-1 and Crystal Palace 1-0. Of course, in the Palace game, there was that really dodgy red card on Tomiyasu. The first, of course, for delaying the game after Kai Havertz had held the ball for around 16 seconds. Tomiyasu picked it up for around 8 and got himself booked. The second was even worse. Jorneo going down after a very, very light contact. Second yellow card from Tomiyasu, off he goes. Prior to Tomiyasu sending off, Arsenal had 66% possession. They'd outshot Palace 14-7, and that changed the game, meaning Arsenal had to go a little bit more defensive, bringing on the likes of Gabriel, Kivor, Jorginho and Zinchenko to shore up the 3 points at Sellers Park, which I think is big for Arsenal in the long term. But I think the question marks over the current team is, are they as creative as last season? In some ways, yes. In other ways, no. For me, Arsenal last season were very, very good on the right-hand side of the pitch. I'm talking the likes of Ben White, combining with Odegaard and Saka, creating this triangle on the right wing where you'd see one of the players operate on the inside position, you'd see one player holding the width and the other one in a very much a support role. And this triangle was really dynamic. We'd see Ben White being ahead of Saka for through balls into the box, of Odegaard playing that more supportive role. We'd see Odegaard underlapping with Saka holding the width and Ben White operating as kind of the support player. And we'd also see Saka inside Odegaard. But I love that flexibility of this Arsenal right-hand side, where basically you had a real danger of not knowing what you're going to face. Each player with a completely different skill set, with a completely different ability to make something happen, to pick a pass and so forth. I really like that about Arsenal. This season, of course, Arsenal have started the season without Zinchenko. Zinchenko was a massive part of Arsenal's possession game last season, getting on the ball and dominating. But it also meant that there was a lot of freedom for Ben White to operate high up the pitch, knowing that Zinchenko had inverted, you had 2 centre-backs behind, and Arsenal had a pretty good defensive structure off the ball. But I think the problem this season is, of course, Tomiyasu has played left-back after Jurrien Timber had that terrible ACL injury. I'm absolutely gutted about that. I thought Timber had a great game. His debut for Arsenal, I thought he was fantastic on the ball. Unfortunately, ACL gone, going to miss the majority of the season. I thought he would really evolve Arsenal from a ball-playing perspective. But he's out injured, which has meant that there's got to be a solution. And that solution at the moment is Thomas Partey moving from that right-back position, moving inside and joining Declan Rice at defensive midfield. So from a statistical perspective, we look at the overall stats for Thomas Partey versus Crystal Palace. They are pretty decent, arguably one of the man of the match for Arsenal. 3 out of 3 tackles won, 1 interception, 1 clearance, 1 chance created, 2 crosses into the box, and completing 1 out of 1 dribble and having 2 shots. I do like this role for Arsenal, for Partey, but I just think it restricts them in an offensive position. By restricting, what I mean is we don't see enough of this right-hand triangle. This is quite deep for Arsenal, but just looking for a game where that right-hand triangle was super dominant, the game against West Ham United, especially in that first half, really opened up West Ham, and you can see how high it is there. Number 8 Odegaard, 7 Saka, and of course 4 Ben White. Ben White in the opponent's half. This looks a lot better balanced than what we're seeing at Arsenal at the moment. This right hand side, the creative side, the side that's going to open up opportunities, and I feel like Arsenal don't have it this season with Thomas Partey playing that position. If we flip back to the heat map, an average position map from the game against Crystal Palace, we can see how deep and narrow that side side is. There's not enough width and there's not enough stretching of the opposition, which I really felt hurt Arsenal in an offensive position. So what can Mikel Arteta do with Thomas Partey? I think this right-back position is just a bit of a mate wait until Zinchenko gets fit. Thomas Partey was exposed, especially against Nottingham Forest, in the transitional moments. I think the Anthony Elanga goal that came from Forest's left-hand side, Arsenal's right-hand side, where Thomas Partey wasn't anywhere to be seen in a transitional moment, and that would be my worry for Arsenal if they're going to use Thomas Partey in that position, the 1v1 defending. But I think the offensive side is another big one. So let's take a look at why I feel this has got to change and the current issues with playing Ben White in a deeper, more centre-back position. So we pick up the play on 17 minutes in the Crystal Palace Arsenal game with Ben White playing as a centre-back next to William Saliba. In a possession sense, Arsenal still create a back three when they're building up. 2 defensive midfielders, the front 3 nice and narrow, and then 2 wingers either side. The big thing I think with Ben White in terms of his position in this setup right now is he doesn't have that ability to maybe drive forward, doesn't have that freedom to drive forward in an attacking sense. You know, that leads him to playing a lot of more simple passes into the feet of the forwards ahead. I don't think it's an issue, but I miss Ben White in a higher position, playing closer to Saka and Odegaard. It gave them much better balance last season. So let's take a look at the passage of play. Of course, Ben White driving forward and then firing the ball in the feet to Eddie Nketiah. Eddie Nketiah's first touch is good, lays it off to Odegaard. What we would have seen from last season with Ben White having a little bit more freedom, not playing as a centre-back, would be him moving into a more advanced area. That support role that we spoke about previously. Arsenal covering the inside channel with Odegaard, Saka with the width, and then the support player operating a little deeper in Ben White. That will give Odegaard a much better passing option now. As he receives defeat, Ben White holds his position. We can see him there deep, playing that responsible role as a centre-back. Consequently, there isn't an option for, Odegaard to take a touch, drop it back to Ben White, and then play it into the feet of Saka. You've then broke that first line. So the beauty of his pass, which I think is a really good pass, it breaks that first Palace midfield line. You're taking out 3 players out of the game into the feet of Eddie Nketiah. You want to utilise that advantage and then play forward again. It's the classic up, back, through methodology. But with Ben White playing this slightly deeper role, that pass isn't really on. It's going to get recycled back to Ben White. And then, of course, you've got to break that line again. The other thing I think with this as well is because Ben White's not as high, Eddie Nketiah is tending to drift right quite a lot, which is kind of convoluting this side. What Arsenal want to do is positionally they want to be well balanced across the forward line. Saka with a 1v1, Odegaard in the inside channel, Nketiah taking up the central position, inside left position, obviously Kai Havertz, and Martinelli holding the width on the left wing. The issue that we're having at the moment is the attack's getting quite congested on the right-hand side, especially with Partey in this zone as well. So in fact, in this move, Odegaard doesn't go back to Ben White. Dribbles, turns, plays forward to Eddie Nketiah, then receives the ball back, drops it back into midfield and then switches it to Tomiyasu. This is the problem I feel that Arsenal have got at the moment, that congestion on the right wing that's usually very, very well spaced with just Ben White, Odegaard and Saka. In the shot, we can see 4 players on the right-hand side of the box, Eddie Nketiah, Saka, Odegaard and of course Thomas Partey in there. There's not enough coverage on this left-hand side. When you're looking at someone like Tomiyasu playing left-back who isn't the best going forward, a great defender but not a great offensive player, you start to see a little bit of a problem. And that's where I feel Arsenal's problems are coming at the moment. This right-hand side is a little bit too congested with Arsenal when they build. You're looking at that build-up shape. It's been a little bit too right-sided. When you look at the statistics, last season, 39% of Arsenal's attacks came down the right-hand side. This season, that shot up to 42%. I feel it's a little bit too right-sided for Arsenal. I think one of the issues is this Thomas Partey inversion not giving the correct balance. I think when Arsenal build with Zinchenko in a defensive position, let's just rotate the team around, bring Gabriel back, dropping into the centre-back role, Ben White back to right-back, Zinchenko comes into midfield. He then inverts. You've got a bit of a better structure in a sense of the balance is a little bit better for this left-hand side of the pitch, where, again, we've got better balance in our left-hand side with Martinelli, Havertz and Zinchenko, better balance on our right-hand side with Saka, White, and, of course, Odegaard. And Nketiah is playing that central role a little bit better. The balance looks better with this setup. And this, I feel, Arsenal have got to go. And I think the interchangeable bit for Thomas Partey, for Arteta, if there's a tough away game or a tough fixture, then bring in Thomas Partey into a central midfield zone, play Declan Rice higher up the pitch spoke about his ability improving as a goal-scoring midfielder. Partey anchoring the team. Arsenal look better balanced with this shape and setup. So I think that's got to be the solution. Of course, the weaker teams, Havertz comes in into that advanced area. Rice drops back to defensive midfield. This team has got better balance, but it also allows Ben White to be a lot more offensive on this right-hand side, knowing that the left-hand side will be a little bit more defensively secure with Zinchenko dropping in. Ben White can also be covered by Declan Rice. And why I talk about this freedom from an offensive position is Ben White was brilliant last season from an attacking perspective. 5 assists in the Premier League. That's a really good return, but also 4 second assist passes. Let's take a look at one of those second assists. We can really see that ability to carry, because I think I brought that up before. Arteta has rules for certain positions. And in an interview last season, talking about William Saliba, he said, what William has done here, for example, he's had the composure to do it, bringing the ball out from the back. In my opinion, I don't like central defenders dribbling. He has to dribble here against Brentford because 2 seconds before he's done something that's not right. It's not a necessity to do that action, but he still is able to resolve the situation. So Arteta doesn't want the players that are playing in those centre-back positions, either Saliba and Gabriel or Ben White and Saliba. He doesn't really want them carrying out. And I think one of Ben White's biggest traits and biggest attributes is his ability to bring the ball out. Hence why I think the right-back position is just so much better for him and better for Arsenal's balance. So let's take a look at an example of him carrying out last season that I just think was a fantastic example of why Arsenal are a little bit better with this setup. Not only because at times they'll overload the left-hand side a little bit more than switch it to the right, creating humongous space, such as in this move. So here we have it against Bournemouth in the Premier League. Got Ben White in possession of the football. He's already carried out. You can already see how much more space Saka has. There has obviously been a bit of switch of plays. Zinchenko's inverted, Partey's in midfield, but there's more space on this right-hand side for Arsenal to attack Bournemouth's back four. Ben White, of course, carries into the opponent's half. He's gone basically from his own defensive third into the final third, carrying the ball towards the Bournemouth backline. What I like about this is not only the intent, but the ability to drive through and carry with pace, something that Ben White has got, which means Saka's got a 1v1 out wide. That opens up an opportunity for Ben White again to join the attacking lineup on the overlap. Saka does brilliantly, holds the play up, lovely little pass. Ben White's in behind, low cross into the box, which is miscontrolled by Gabriel Jesus, and Odegaard fires it home. But that ability to join the attacking lineup is a big strength for Ben White. I just don't think we're getting it when he's playing as a centre-back versus when he's playing a right-back. Statistically, his XA this season is 0. Last season it was pretty decent per game, and that's something that Arsenal are lacking at the moment by playing Thomas Partey in a midfield role. And I think for Arsenal to get to their attacking best, the triangle of Odegaard, Saka and Ben White needs to be something that Arsenal really focus on. And I think if you look at the connectivity between that right side of the pitch, it's a great example of Arsenal's game against Crystal Palace. You look at Ben White's passes to Martin Odegaard, it only happened 5 times in the game. That's something that happens frequently in other matches. Let's go back to Arsenal versus Crystal Palace. I thought the connectivity there between Odegaard and Ben White was superb. If we take a look at the passes between Ben White to Odegaard, it's 11 times in the game and 14 to Saka. The numbers are very similar to Saka this season, but that is completely different. It's almost double the amount of passes to Odegaard, and I do feel like having Ben White as a right back is only going to make Arsenal better, which does have questions for Thomas Partey. Where does he fit in the long term? Is he someone that's going to come in and out of the team? I think one big reason why he is now in that position is because of Declan Rice. Declan Rice was absolutely brilliant again against Crystal Palace. You look at his statistics in the game, absolutely elite level play. Completed 90% of his passes, one big chance created with that brilliant little touch and poke through with his right foot. 2 blocks, an interception, a clearance. Was ranked first on the pitch for distance covered, was ranked second for passes in the opponent's half, second for passes in the final third, first for expected assists, and of course 8 passes under pressure, which was number 1 in the game. Declan Rice is undroppable for this Arsenal team right now, so it is building around this Ben White on the right-hand side and potentially playing Thomas Partey in that midfield zone again, bringing Zinchenko back as a left-back. For me, that is the best way for Arsenal to continue growing this season. This setup will get the best out of Arsenal's players. So far in the Premier League, they're ranked 10th for chances created with Everton. They've created just 21 chances in the first 2 game weeks. That is down on last season average. I think freeing Ben White, dropping Thomas Partey, throwing Kai Havertz into the advanced area is a real way that Arsenal can start getting back to those top chance creation numbers and start scoring more goals. Of course, with Gabriel Jesus coming back eventually, you'll also see the numbers shoot up. Obviously, he suits Arsenal a lot better than Eddie Nketiah through the middle. Nketiah's been fantastic, but you think about the two big chances that Arsenal created against Palace were both missed by Eddie Nketiah in open play. Long-term, Arsenal will be great. They're building a really good bit of momentum again at the start of this season, winning ugly. Currently 6 points in the Premier League as we started with Arteta, bringing Ben White to right back. Partey out the team, I think, is the solution in the short term. So, thanks for watching, guys. If you are new around here, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I've been Statman Dave. Get into the comments below. What would you do with Thomas Partey? And is Arteta going to make the right call? And we'll see you next time on the Statman Dave Clips channel. See you later.